All right, everyone. So now you have seen my Age 1 tier list for the base game. And knowing that I'm definitely not an expert at the base game, but this is how my general thought is when I'm playing the base game of Seven Wonders Duel. Now moving on to the card tier list for Age 2 for Seven Wonders Duel, if we're just evaluating the base game. So I would first put this gets a little tougher, but I start looking at some of these yellow cards. So I put the brewery in S tier. That's just a great one to grab. Also, Customs House in S tier. Great one to grab. You want to make sure that your amount of coins that you're discarding or getting when you discard is high. So both of those are great for that. And if you are robbed of gray cards, like Circus Maximus destroyed one, or you never got any gray cards in H1, then in that case, you may consider grabbing the Customs House because then you're good for gray cards the rest of the game. There's a chance you may have Piraeus. There's a chance you also may have this other card, Forum, and that would also be pretty good. There was a time when I thought Forum was better than the Customs House, and that was because I would always grab Piraeus, and I found myself always getting Piraeus. But you have to ask yourself, if I always continually get what I want, especially against good players, maybe what I want is not actually that good. So that's what I started to realize is when I always got Lighthouse, when I really loved Lighthouse, I realized, hey, when I'm playing against good players, they always give me Lighthouse. Maybe Lighthouse isn't that great. The Great Lighthouse as a wonder. So then I realized I kept getting the Forum, and it's because they would allow me to get it. It's not as good as these two. I feel Customs House to be better, but that was a change of mind that I had. Um, in fact, Caravanserai is probably a little better than the Forum, and Caravanserai is great for those brown cards and getting just the one that you need. You get it's harder to monopolize somebody uh, who has the Caravanserai. I may even put that into S tier too. Forum's still fine. Just yellow cards in general are great. You saw in the Age 1 that the yellow cards were on the top. So looking now, we've got some blue cards. We could just go through all the blue cards here. So the Aqueduct, I'm going to place that probably in D tier just because D stands for discard. I generally discard all of the blue cards in H1 and a lot of them in H2. Courthouse also can be kind of expensive, so I just put that as D tier. The Rostrum, now that one gives a linking symbol to the next one afterwards. I don't remember particularly what resources it saves, um, but you won't need to use whatever those resources are. You can have a discount. And same thing with the temple, that gives a discount as well. So I'll put the ones that have linking symbols in the C tier for those blue cards. Similarly, the ones with C tier, or the ones with a linking symbol, are better for the military cards, as they'll make the military cards cheaper in Age 2 or Age 3. However, the Age 2 ones that have linking symbols also happen to have, they're better for shields as well. They give 2 shields. The 1 shields you're not going to probably want to grab as often. Walls is fine. It can be useful to stop an opponent, but if given the choice between the two, each of those 2 shields, I'd probably take the ones with linking symbols. So I'll probably leave the walls at B tier. And then really this is all, the rest of it's dependent on what your strategy is. So if you're really trying to end the game in military, these are all the dependent ones right here. Okay? So if you're trying to end the game in military, these 3 are going to be, or these 2 are going to be higher. If you're trying to, the one shield ones, if you're trying to end the game in science and set yourself up for H3, it depends on which one you're missing for these different science symbols. So I don't know my statistics on which ones I take the most, but it doesn't matter because it's all game dependent. These maybe I pick these two, the linking symbol ones, the most because I grab a progress token. But if I'm going for that science victory and I already have these two, sometimes I want to grab these other ones, even though these ones might be free because I grabbed them in age one. And also, if your goal is to do a monopoly strategy, so you got these hardcore, try to end it in age two military. You've got this I try to monopolize my opponent, so my opponent's missing wood, take this one. My opponent's missing stone, definitely take this one. And my opponent's missing clay, take this one. So for those, no, I think stone's just really important. So I'm gonna put stone in age two. If you know you're gonna go into age three and need it, you're gonna want to have stone as a resource. You don't want to be missing out on stone. And if you can stop your opponent, like take care of answer or discard it, discard, and you can use the what's that called? Shelf query. Shelf query can be a decider for the game, so that's why it's got to be at A, because the shelf query can make your opponent spend so much money for each time they need to use stone that they just bleed out points in coins when they start needing to grab the blue cards in H3. Um, but at the same time, you could uh, need to go military. And so potentially these military cards could be a lot higher, depending on maybe bump each of these military cards up 1 point if you're going for a H2 end military. So I'll do that right now for you. So boom, 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 boom. If you're trying to end it in H2, I would do that. Okay. And there's no Control Z, so I'm gonna manually put those all back because that's actually not where I would put them. And I would even put that shield lower than those blue cards because it's just not that beneficial to have a shield in age one. A single shield is going to make you not start the game in the next stage. So if you're going to grab a single shield, probably better to be horse breeders. It'd be cheaper probably than the 3 coin barracks. And that usually is 3 coins because you're not going to grab the linking symbol for it. So yeah. In any case, I'd say if you're going to build some of these military cards, then build them all. But uh, yeah, you want to have a decisive lead in military if you're going to be grabbing these in H2. All right, so that's just important to be said about military cards. So it's hard to do a tier list when there are so many competing factors. And the H2 tier list in the past has always been the hardest one I've ever needed to do because at age 2 you're choosing what your final win is going to be. And I can tell you what each of those does. So picking the shelf query, that signals to your opponent, I think I'm going to go into the next stage and win in points. Stone's just valuable for points. I don't want to be lacking in stone, and I want you to need to pay for stone. But if they didn't grab the stone reserve, then they're not in a good position for points. Every strategy uses wood. I've talked about this in previous videos. So I'd say sawmill is important, especially if you didn't grab wood in age one. Now's the time to make sure you grab it. Then the brickyard, probably useful, but if you're going for that military type of victory, maybe you start discarding a lot of cards and you have the coins anyways, so you're not worried too much. But you can't be discarding a lot of cards and grabbing points. And so that's why that stone, the shelf query, is so important. If you're going for a science, you could be missing wood. You could be missing the 2 gray cards that are also important for a science strategy, but you need like 2 of 3 of those. And so in those instances, I would I would take the sawmill to make sure you have 2 of 3 of those. But also something to be said, if you're not going a point strategy, you can just discard cards to get coins, and if you have enough yellow cards, then you're fine. And so that's why I rank the sawmill lower. And then finally, I rank the brickyard even lower. So that's where I would put those age 2 ones for the base game. Then, if you don't want to have somebody, if you have nothing in that resource, then yeah, bump that resource up. If you don't have any clay, move it up. If you don't have any wood, move it up. And if you don't have any stone, that becomes an S tier card. So yeah, you just need to make sure that you have those things if you think you need those strategies. And again, those strategies are stone for points, wood for everything, but especially science, and then clay for military. All right. So next up, let's look at these free gray cards. So let's put both of those in maybe B tier. Yeah, those could be useful going into this age, and you're starting to get ready to build your wonders. So there's a chance you didn't need to build any wonders, but now you are going to need to build your wonders, and those two are pretty important for you. Maybe put glass a little higher than papyrus, but that's where I would put them. And I would even put, no, maybe put the sawmill higher, and then the wall. Yeah, I'll leave the wall there. They're all B's here. Now looking at the science. So this is tricky. If you're going a science strategy, if you're just trying to grab the progress token, then yeah, these ones are going to be pretty high up there. The two linking symbols, because they'll link into the progress token that you need. Maybe it's theology, maybe it's strategy, in military. But you probably, this is a tough tier list to do. You may even ignore all these and put all the science in D tier and just discard them all. Yeah, if science wasn't prevalent in age 1 and nobody has any science, you may just discard the rest of the age 2 science cards. I'll just put them all in B tier because they really depend, you know? They're all going to depend on a lot of things, but these two have an edge because they link in and you can get a progress token out of them. But you may not need those ones. If you're going for a science victory, you may be looking for one of the other ones. But yeah, so that is where I would place all of these. Let me see if I have any issues with this. So this is age 2, base game we're talking, 7 Wonders Duel. So brewery at the top, customs house next, caravansary next. Then in the A tier, the forum. Got all those yellow cards. Then shelf quarry next. Yeah, if you don't get the caravansary, maybe one of these brown cards will be useful. And then taking those 2 military cards, you don't want your opponent to get 2 or 3 military cards in this age, but you yourself don't want to take any military cards if you know it would cause you to not start the next age, or be able to choose who starts in the next age. But it can be tricky. Sometimes you don't care who starts in the next stage, and so especially in the base game, maybe you don't care. So you just grab a bunch of military and you're good. But you might care if your opponent has 4 of 6 or 5 of 6 science symbols that they need to win. You may not want to be pushing so much in military, or pushing it at all in military, because then that guarantees them to go first in the next stage. However, if you've already taken 1 military card, then and it was early enough, then there's still a lot left of the structure in age 2. So there's a lot more possibility to grab more of these red cards. And with each red card taken, the power level of those cards grows exponentially. So what I mean by that is, if you take the archery range, you just saw that it was cheap, you had the resources for it, take it, you are fine with not going first in the next age, letting your opponent choose who goes first in age 3. But now your goal becomes these next 2 shields you get, whether from the walls or parade grounds, become even more important. So once you've taken a little bit of that military, you gotta commit. You gotta really push hard at military. There's a chance though, you take a military 2 shield, your opponent takes a military 2 shield, and then you're back to square one, and then it doesn't matter as much which like taking more military, because you're not going to be able to break any coins of your opponent, and you're not going to be able to have a decisive lead in military. And honestly, if I'm going for military, I'd rather be losing by 1 shield going into h3, because then I could take the 3 shields that may come up in h3 easier. I have more control of the pyramid, the structure in h3. All right, so that is my base game look at H2 cards, and I want everyone to know this was the hardest list that I've made, because H2 is tricky, and also I'm looking at the base game. When I go into Pantheon expansion, I'll talk with a lot more confidence. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your